€174. Similar amounts was handed to Sobea Skills Training Center, Takuligay Skills Center, and Sajuka Skills Center. For Grts News, I am Esitomane.
Preparations for this year's NECONF is in full swing as organizers ramp up efforts to roll out another successful youth convergence. The December Youth Festival is little under 3 weeks to go before the first participants arrive on the Janjamburi Island, the venue of this year's event. Meantime, the Kanefe municipality has launched its local organizing committee. We have details of that story in this report. National Youth Conference and Festival, NECONF, is a biennial event that brings together young people from all over the country and beyond to share experiences and also dilate on issues affecting them. According to Bakari Baji, Youth Councillor in the Kanefe municipality, the forthcoming NECONF will have 5 broad activities, including a youth conference, cultural performances and sports. Slated for the 14th to the 22nd December 2012 in the CRR settlement of Janjambure, about 1,500 young people and stakeholders from across the country are expected to partake in this year's NECONF, with the KM alone to contribute 150 young people.
How can we, as young people, be re-energized and reoriented so that we can be able to participate in the socio-economic development of this country? And that is why we have a theme which is directing and reorienting youth participation towards the productive sector of the economy. That simply means that as young people we understand that we have a role to play when it comes to the development of this country, but more specifically the economic development of this country.
The mayor of the Kanefe municipality, Yankuba Koli, who delivered the launch statement, expresses satisfaction with the performances put up by the youth in the previous NECOMs. Although Mayor Koli acknowledged the challenging nature of the country's largest youth gathering, he tasked young people representing his municipality to return from CRR with trophies as they did in the past editions.
We still see ourselves as the best in anything, that we are the pace setters, that whatever we are into, we want success. We don't see it whether it is small or big. All our mind focus onto victory.
This year's NECONF intends to provide young people the opportunity to critically look into youth participation in the productive sectors of our economy and other key issues that impede their participation in that sector. As the NECONF inches ever closer, the Kanefe municipality has set up a 50-man committee to work out the modalities needed for their success and that of the week-long event as a whole. Famara Fofana, Grts. The Minister of Youth and Sports has called on Gambian youth to follow in the footsteps of retired Gambian footballer and prominent sports administrator George Gomez, who authored a book which captures the glorious history of Gambian football. Minister Aluke Jame was speaking at the launch of the book titled The Milestones of Gambian Football. Our Babkar Senghor has the rest of that story.
Carefully choreographed event marking the launch of the book authored by George Gomez, a former Gambian footballer. The book titled The Milestones of Gambian Football is the first historical collection on Gambian football. The launching, which gathered family members, men and women in football, footballers of the 50s and 60s, league and Nawetan players and members of the under-17 female team, marked another step in the drive to revisiting Gambia's football history. The author, who is no stranger to Gambian football, having played for the national team and also served briefly as GFA president in the early 90s, says he was elated to come up with this collection. The book illustrates a pictorial collection of Gambian teams of the yesteryears, those that form part of the successful under-17 championship, among a host of others. The Youth and Sports Minister was on hand to witness the launch of the book. Aliu Jame was full of praises for the author, whilst urging Gambians to follow in his footsteps.
George Gomez, Mr. George Gomez, as he has been introduced already by the chair of this function, has been an accomplished sportsman, a fine administrator. I know he led a while ago the GNOC as executive director. And recently, Mr. Gomez has turned to be a prolific writer. I'm aware that this is not his first time that he is launching or publishing a book. He is a personification of a perfect role model to any young person who desires to excel in life. So I bring sincere greetings from Dr. Barr to the upper and all of you here present. On a personal note, I like to take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Gomez for finding the time to document a fine catalog of the beginning and metamorphosis of football and association football in the Gambia.
The book, according to ex-footballers, will help readers and young Gambians in particular to get to grips with the glorious past of Gambian football.
For George Gomez to really come up with a book of this nature, I think we all have to say bravo to him. And it really reminds me of the words of Shakespeare, where he said, "There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken by the floods leads unto fortune."
Prominent sports personality Abdoulaye Baksture gives us an insight into the book. The book, being the first written history on Gambian football, comes at a time the country's football is struggling for a stronger footing after a difficult few years marked by incessant failure and lack of clear direction. For Grts News, this is Babukar Senghor.
Well, that report by Babukar Senghor there takes us to our first break. We'll be back with stories from outside the Gambia. Welcome back. The conflict between Hamas and Israel has pushed Syria off the headlines, but the conflict still rages on. The battle for supremacy between the Free Syrian Army and government troops continue, affecting hundreds of thousands of civilians who are fleeing to neighboring Turkey. As we hear in this report by Nick Partin-Wells, Russia is warning that the more weapons made available, the harder the war will hit Syrians.
This is the slimmest glimmer of hope for rebels. A key base west of Aleppo, not only overrun, but also looted for badly needed weapons. Regime aircraft now vulnerable to these, regime tanks now driven by rebels. Similar scenes in the east near Deir ez-Zor, rebels claiming they've purged the regime from a whole swathe of land near the Iraqi border. Both victories mean the regime is less able to project brute force in the north and east. Perhaps they're also having to concentrate forces here on Damascus's suburbs. This is Daria. Rebels have kept regime troops out, so it's instead being pounded for nearly a fortnight by 3 separate army units, 35 dead on Thursday alone. But that didn't stop this unusual outburst in the capital's very central old market. Women in wedding dresses demanding an end to military operations, discreetly filmed. They were soon led away by uniformed men. Little sign Bashar al-Assad is cracking. Friday he met with key Iranian power broker Ali Larijani, perhaps bolstered by Moscow swiftly moving to criticize Turkey's demand for Patriot missiles like these along the volatile border. A move that could drag NATO into the war, Russia warned.
As I already said, the main concern is that the more weapons there are, the greater the risk that they will be used. And also, any provocation could trigger it.
Winter will be unkind to the regime and its opponents. More refugees, these in Turkey, will struggle in freezing temperatures. But worse weather will also make it harder for the regime's main advantage, air power, to fly. The hardest months for Syrians may still be ahead. Nick Payton-Walsh, CNN, Beirut.
Demonstrators filled the streets of Cairo and beyond on Friday to protest against what critics say is a power grab by Islamist President Mohamed Morsi. But Morsi is standing his grounds that the moves are to protect last year's revolution. CNN's Raza Sayar is in Cairo and he updates us on the latest developments there.
1 p.m. local time right now in Cairo. Things have calmed down considerably. There are still some demonstrators out in Tahrir Square, those who pitched tents overnight, but certainly not the numbers we saw yesterday. This was one of the most intense and violent days of protest we've seen over the past couple of years. According to the health ministry, 140 people injured throughout Egypt.